Good morning, friends. Here we are. Can anybody tell me what the E stands for in Freya's first name?
Free book for anyone who gets it right.
If you get it right, you get a free book. Any guess? Eunice?
These are lovely
Evelyn?
names. I wish it were one of those.
No, it's actually Elizabeth.
My parents thought it was a good idea to put my names the wrong way around.
So here we are. I'm going to do a little bit untraditional, like I typically do. It's a little strange being behind the screen, but that's okay. A couple of thoughts here. The speed networking. So I'm Jonathan. I'm at Unilever. I've been for 4 years at Unilever. I'm here at TSC for the first time. I'm a board member of a year and a half or so, but I missed the summit last year, so my first time. And what I want to get out of the week is talk about Chapter 2 of TSC. Where are we going from here? I am not a scientist. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a master's. I have an undergraduate in government and legal studies, which is quite helpful in sustainability, I guess. What I'm really hoping to do is, alongside you, is to actually move into the future together and do big things. I have a 10-year-old son. I'll take him to college in 8 years. I want to be able to tell him that I was amongst a community of people that changed the world. Unilever will not change the world by itself. Companies themselves, other companies won't change it by themselves. We need to do this together. It's great to see so many people that I don't know here, so I will speed network through the rest of the 2 days, but that's where I am for now. Raise your hand if you're a millennial. We have a lot. Excellent. So I have a little, and some people that know me will know that sometimes I throw things out randomly. I'm going to challenge my partners at ASU and Arkansas with an idea that we came up last night at dinner. I think it's time that we have a challenge with young people around sustainability that ends up with a scholarship to the university as part of TSC. And that we actually bring these entrepreneurs into our program in the coming years. Just a thought, hold that. A couple things. Does anybody know what tomorrow is? Earth Day. Do you know when was the first Earth Day? 1970. Do you know what the headline for Earth Day tomorrow is that the Earth Day Network is using? Because I think it's relevant for all of us. Let's get really big stuff done for the planet. And I think, just ponder that thought because I think it's important. The other thing I have to do is a kind of a public service announcement. Since we are a British and Dutch company, today is the Queen's 90th birthday, so I have to say it, otherwise I could get in trouble. So, happy birthday to the Queen. We are a founding member of the TSC. We've been here since 2009. I will tell you with a very straight face and very importantly that we have used the TSC. We've probably gotten more out of the TSC than we've given back. We've used it a lot in terms of the way we've developed our program at Unilever. We continue to use it in our model and in the way we look at our supply chain. Visibility continues to be a challenge for us, and I think for all of us, quite honestly. But I just wanted to say that because it's really been an important partnership and one that I think we're going to expand on as we go. You know, it goes without saying, and I think Freya actually brings it out a little bit, and I'll bring it out a little bit sharper, and that is that I think stakeholders for all of us are expecting a lot of business. They're expecting a lot of civil society. They're expecting a lot of government for us to take the lead on sustainability. There is nobody else. There is nobody else. Academics are in that conversation, obviously, but we have to push. And so my message ultimately to all of us, and I put all of us together in this story, is that I think we have to push and push harder and make it more personal. How many of you actually can identify, and with some level of clarity, what your personal purpose is? Just a raise of hands, if you have a sense as to what you could identify and enunciate, if I were to quiz you, what your personal purpose is. A lot of you. I think that, you know, just an observation I have in the sustainability space is I think that we've allowed much of the conversation to become somewhat academic and intellectual. And we've forgotten that at the end of the day, TSC has KPIs and metrics. We do work around sustainability, but we're doing it on behalf of people that need it. It might be consumers, it might be the smallholder farmer in Africa. There's always an end user, it just depends on what that story is. And why I tell you that is because it kind of goes to Cheryl's presentation yesterday, which I thought was brilliant from Pure Strategies around this business case and the conversation that goes on within companies. You know, what she was talking about was really kind of a frame around what we're thinking about at Unilever. And you know, we talk as a business about what the business will do, that our business is in place to serve society. Our brands are in place to serve society. We've asked all of our brands to identify a societal need and address it. And when we get that right, these brands grow like crazy. So if we're talking about children that die before the age of 5 from diarrhea, and we make a soap, and we can actually have lots of people learn how to wash their hands, and why that's important, kids live, and we sell more soap. It's really kind of a simple model. You know, if you make a toilet bowl cleaner, and we have an issue around open defecation around the world, if we can get more toilets built, there's going to be more toilet bowl cleaners sold, people get their human dignity back. That's kind of the story. So I say this because I think this is where I think TSC is now. You know, let me be really straight with you. For a long time before I joined the board, I got freaked out about the TSC. And the reason why I got freaked out was because it was about these KPI and metrics, and I'm not that smart. And there was so much information, and I didn't know what to look at, and I thought there was so much stuff, and they would be talking about all these things, and quite honestly, I couldn't follow the story. But there are people at Unilever, obviously, that can follow the story, thankfully. And as I get further into this, and I start to learn more, I start to say to myself, now I can really start to understand things that I didn't understand before. I can see below the surface and get more granular in insights so that I can turn those insights into insights that brands can actually use in the marketplace, that employees can wrap their heads around, that someone in procurement can understand what a hot spot is, what a blind spot is. You know, I had this thought this morning, and I don't know why. Don't kill me. We're talking about the impact report this afternoon. We're talking about going from blind spots to hot spots to action. And I thought that's interesting. I wish the word growth was there, because then it would be a BHAG, right? Isn't that interesting? But that's just an aside. So Unilever has this brands with a purpose, and so we start talking about this, and we talk about, it was mentioned by Freya. Last year we talked about the fact that our brands with a purpose at Unilever are growing twice as fast as the other brands. 50% of all of our company's growth came from these brands. They have a better core operating margin, so they make money, right? We've had an incredible launch on LinkedIn, and we're starting to emerge in the LinkedIn space where it's, you know, it's kind of Apple, Google, and Unilever now in terms of LinkedIn search. We have 2 million followers on LinkedIn. I don't even know how that's possible. I'm not that really adept at social media, but it's based on the sustainability and caring for the world. You know, we have $600 million in identified and quantified avoided costs since 2008 in our supply chain, right? We have 60% of our agriculture materials are sustainably sourced. We're on the path. It's getting really hard, but there's a reason why we're doing it. The business case is very clear. It's about growth. It's about trust and reputation. It's about cost, and it's about risk. It's kind of the TSC story all wrapped up into a business case for Unilever. And so that's kind of why we're here. That is why we're here, and that's why I'm really, really happy to be here talking to you, because, you know, I want to talk about the new TSC. You know, I think Chapter 1, and this is just my interpretation, you know, the new guy into this thing a year and a half ago or so, Chapter 1 of TSC, I think, absolutely powerful. KPIs, metrics, science-based, the facts are the facts. We're learning new things every single day. I want to go to Chapter 2. I want to talk about the impact. I want to talk about our collective impact that's in the room here. Where can we come together pre-competitively? Where can Jack from P&G and Unilever come together pre-competitively and sit down and say, we care about this, we mutually care about this, let's do something big. Let's do something big for the world and put all this to the side. You know, and whether it's Unilever and P&G or P&G and somebody else, or, you know, let's do those uncommon collaborations where you haven't really thought of it before, but let's think about it now, talk about it, challenge ourselves to say, is it big, and is it worth doing? And if it's not that big, then I'm not that interested, right? I and we at Unilever want to work on things that matter, that are big, and that they're big enough that no one else has ever solved them before, right? And so we talk about collaboration. I love this idea about sustainable products for a sustainable planet. You know, I love that. We have 400 products in our portfolio. Unilever is just basically a collection of brands. The company is brands. If we don't make them sustainable, we don't have a sustainable company. So it all fits together. I love that thought. But it got me thinking, we need to identify the impacts. We've got to be clear about that. We need to use this group as the catalyst, for this positive change. I think we can do that together. And then, I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have collectively as a community is there's a lot of complexity in this story, in these supply chains, upstream, downstream, blind spots, hot spots, action. Oh my God. Again, I'm not that smart. I need to be able to take this back to my organization of 172,000 people and give them the story and the narrative that says this is why this is important. If you're a brand marketer and you don't know exactly where every single ingredient on that ingredient panel comes from and what the issues are and what we're going to do about it, then I've got to teach you. We've got to help you. I don't want to just send them to the index and say, hope you can figure it out. I want to be able to say, this is why it's important, this is the way we're looking at it, and there are some collaborations forming or to be formed to actually address some of these issues. So we've talked about TSC as a collaboration hub. I think it's going to require us to act differently amongst this community in these sessions, to be quite provocative with each other, to be quite provocative in pushing the edge of what's possible, to reconsider, is it enough to kind of clean up the supply chains and then walk away? I'm not suggesting that's what we're doing, but I think it's about looking at our value chains, looking at the end user, looking at human beings that we're going to affect positively through our brands, through our companies, through our employees, right? Employees, I know within our community at Unilever, employees want to join Unilever, and our only hope in retaining them is to have an exciting proposition about the bigger game, the bigger strategy, right? There's a lot of options out there in the marketplace these days, a lot of options for people to go other places and do other things. I want to make sure that we are working within a community of people that are saying, what I'm working on matters. It's big. I'm scared by the targets we've set. We set audacious targets at Unilever, to be clear. At some level, they're audacious, they're shocking. We do that on purpose. One, because that's the game we want to play. Two, we want to galvanize change. We want people to think about, I have no idea how to get to that target. Now we're talking that's the right language. If you have no idea, now it's big enough. And then it requires us to collaborate. To be clear, we get nothing done. Nothing that has been done at Unilever has been done by Unilever by ourselves. Nothing. Someone asked me once, can you point to one? I said, no, I can't. So all the work that we do in collaboration, pre-competitively through organizations like the TSC, like CGF, but that's where the action is. And so I just wanted to say thank you to TSC for calling out the SGDs in the report, the Sustainable Development Goals, the blueprint for our planet. 17 goals. They're at least one of the 17. Everybody in the room should be able to identify and very clearly enunciate what your personal role or what your company's role could be in it. There's something in there for everything. But this is about poverty. A lot of the work at TSC looks as though it's about commodities. It may look like supply chains, but ultimately it's about eradicating extreme poverty, isn't it? It's about inequality and justice. It's about climate change. 170 countries will be in New York tomorrow signing the Paris Agreement. My CEO will be there as well. Other CEOs will be there. This is a momentous moment that we're stepping into, saying this is a good signing. The blueprint is not clear as to where we go from here necessarily with that agreement. We're going to have to step in together and do that. But I will end by saying maybe it's too bold to say, but I think we need to close the book on Chapter 1 of TSC. I think it's time that we kind of co-create and co-design the future for the organization. Demand on be more demanding about what you want from the organization. We talk about collaboration, but I don't think anybody's figured out exactly what that word means in this context. I think we have to co-create what that collaboration is going to look like. We have to push each other. We have to demand of each other that we need to form partnerships that are actually going to move the needle in really, really big ways. Because I think if at the end of the day, if all of us independently just do the KPIs and the metrics and we're playing for the Walmart index and I get a good score and you don't, guess what? It really is not going to matter that much overall for the planet. It's just really not. And I know that's not why Walmart has designed the index. I know that's not true. But this idea that there are winners and losers, I don't really believe that. I think there are opportunities for all of us to play together. I think it's quite clear, and at least we believe that it's quite clear that when you get active in sustainability, when you tie your brands to a purpose, when you tie your company to a purpose, you engage your employees, your brands grow faster, your company grows faster. The white space for Unilever is not looking for new channels and new media structures and all. The white space for us is if we could actually unlock growth in Africa and give opportunity to those folks. The white space is actually in sustainability. Is actually in that space. How can we reach more people? How can we pull people out of poverty and actually make them productive in society? Through our brands and through our company. And through all of our companies. So, I think it's time. I talked about our model. Our model is very easy. The framework is very easy. It's about growth. It's about trust. It's about cost. It's about risk. This is our view of it. We're not philanthropy. We're not about CSR. We're not about we're not just a foundation. We're actually a company that wants to make money. We have a big footprint. We reach 2 billion consumers a day. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to those consumers that consume our products. We have a responsibility to the world. We take it very seriously. And so, with that, I will end. They're giving me the signal. To me, it always comes back to the people. It comes back to the people in the room. I don't know I wasn't able to network with all of you this morning, but I'm hoping to get around quite a bit in the next 48 hours. But, what are we all going to stand up and say we're going to do? What are we going to work on together? Are we ready to stand up as TSC at the end of the session, or at the end of, maybe this year or later on in the year, and say that we as a community are going to commit to addressing one of these sustainable development goals? That we collectively are going to measure. We're going to feed into a process where we're going to measure our total community contribution against one of the sustainable development goals. I think it'd be really cool. We could pick water. We could pick any number of the 17. But I think that's, my plea to you is kind of an urging that we step up and step in to the challenges that we're all facing, and saying, it's good for business. It'll be good for your business. It's good for our business. But it's good for humanity. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, and I can't say enough how much we appreciate your leadership on the board, and for sharing this idea that we need to collaborate as we move into Chapter 2 of the consortium. And I think this week is a great reflection of that. And I will say that Jonathan and others on the board really pushed to have those kinds of conversations this week. And so this summit is a reflection of much of which Jonathan was calling out today. And I thank him again for being willing to speak today. So we have a few moments, and I wondered if Sheila might come up to join our speakers. And we do have time for maybe one, maybe two. We'll start with one question from the audience. And I wonder if we could use the microphones. So are there, what question might you have for our speakers and our panelists now, related to Chapter 2 of the consortium, or collaboration, or building business building sustainability into your business, or the book, The Green Giants?
Say that again.
Yeah, or the book, Green. There's one over here. I see Libby. That's one.
John, in the meantime, how are we doing on the scholarships at ASU in Arkansas? We all set?
Unilever has offered the first contribution.
Right. The scholarships.
They're very grateful.
All right. We'll have a sign-up sheet outside for that. That's right. Okay, Libby?
Yes. Hi, Libby Bernick from TrueCost. Thank you very much for your insights. And I'm really curious about this notion of disruptive innovation as compared to collaboration. One seems to happen fast, and the other seems to take a long time. Isn't there some tension to what you're suggesting?
Which one happens first, out of interest?
Disruptive innovation.
I mean, actually, I didn't go into this, but it took the companies that developed those products a considerable period of time to develop them. So, you know, the Prius was kind of I think between 5 and 10 year investment. GE has invested significant R&D dollars into developing these products over the past 10 years. So I'm not sure if I'm missing the point of the question, but I don't think any of this was quick or easy. I think, you know, the innovation takes work, and it takes the commitment of resources, the commitment of talent. I actually often talk about how much money the Green Giants invested to bring these products to market, and about how they deploy not just, you know, the likes of us in the room, but the technical experts from within the company, whether that's Nike's design experts, it's GE's, you know, whiz-bang scientists. You know, you have to have those collaborators on board and those brilliant minds engaged to do the seemingly impossible. So I'm not sure that either of these comes quick or easy. None of this comes easy. You guys, I guess, are the kind of bear the scars and the wounds of that, of that journey. So I'm not sure there is a tension. I think it's all hard, but the rewards are there for those who sort of commit and stay the course.
Another question for the group? There's one here in the middle.
My name is Jennifer Anderson. I'm with a company called Sustainability, and I'm curious about this concept of leadership, and particularly the first common thread, Freya, that you identified in your book. And that's something that I have really noticed over the course of my career in looking at companies and what has made them very successful in sustainability. How do we, all of those other 5 seem like things that could be sort of engineered or cultivated, so to speak. But that one, I think, can be very difficult for companies to achieve if it's not already there. You know, Ray Anderson is a fabulous example, but we're not all fortunate enough to have that. So are there things that we can do to help create or attract that?
You go first.
I'm going to let Jonathan answer this one. No, I'll just say briefly, though, I mean, of course, that's one of the biggest questions I get about the book, and I guess if I had the answer to that, I'd be much richer than I am. It is really challenging. How do we breed more of these leaders? This is a conversation that we often have. In fact, I had a little dinner with Andrew. I think, Jonathan, you were there? Were you there? Did you come? Hunter and others when I first launched the book, and the dinner conversation was, how do we breed more leaders like this? I'm not sure I know the answer, but I think part of the reason I wrote the book, honestly, was to create a business case that spoke the language of business leaders, so that they could see there was no trade-off. Because often I think the reason people aren't doing it is perhaps the fear of failure, the belief there isn't a business case. So I also think peer-to-peer is one of the most powerful strategies for cultivating more leaders. So we can all do everything we have in our power to convince our leadership of the need to do this, but I think peer-to-peer is also a super powerful tool, and we saw that with We Mean Business and the kind of momentum that built towards Paris, with the number of CEOs stepping up and committing to bold leadership and bold change towards Paris. So I think it's starting to shift. I think it's starting to happen. Jonathan, what would you say?
I think it's an interesting question, right? So let's put the elephant in the room. I think a lot of folks might believe that without Paul Pullman, Unilever doesn't have a story. And I'm not going to take a thing away from Paul Pullman. I think he's an incredible business leader. I think he's passionate about sustainability. I think he, obviously he believes it and believes it's the model. What's interesting at our company, and I think at a lot of companies, is, certainly at Unilever, we're pushing our leaders. There are many that are just like Paul, that are speaking about sustainable growth and sustainable business. That's why I asked all the questions about personal purpose, because I think sometimes a lot of folks in this space believe that someone else will do it. It's somebody else is going to show me the way. There's going to be another great book from Freya that's going to tell me how it's all going to happen. And what I'm challenging us to do, and what I challenge a lot of people to do, is to step into it and say, live your purpose. Be very clear about what it is, and tell people. And tell people within your company about what it is, because you'll be amazed at when you get courageous, when you're a courageous leader and expose yourself, personally, it becomes very authentic. So we're pushing people at Unilever. If you're leading, if you're a leader in Unilever, we're gonna want to know what your personal purpose is, and we want to make sure that it's authentic, and we want you to talk about it. And we want you to bring that every single day, because you're going to motivate people that work on your team and those throughout the company. And so, I often talk about my personal purpose in very explicit terms, not so much to get a reaction from other employees, but to remind myself as well why I'm doing this. Because we're all working really, really hard, and I don't want it to be about, hitting a scorecard. I want it to be about changing the world, and I want it to be about impacting human beings, right? Ultimately, human beings wherever they may be and whatever they may do. So my challenge to you all is to say, be thinking about your personal purpose and be willing to push that hard out into your organization about become that leader. Become the leader that stands for something in a very authentic way. Your story is your story, mine's mine, right? But push it, because I think you'll see big results. I would say this at Unilever, that something phenomenally interesting is happening. We have obviously senior level leadership buy-in. The new folks that are joining Unilever out of college are coming in really passionate about sustainability. So we have this really cool tension now between the lower levels of the organization pushing up. We want more and we want it faster. And the big question is why? Every question at Unilever now is why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? What about that? What about this? And we have the leaders coming. It's the middle. It's the folks that are in middle management that have been, that are managers and directors and those kinds of folks that are. I'm really pushing to say you've got to lead now. Now's the moment you got to lead with your personal purpose and get into the story, and tell everybody what you stand for, why you're fighting so hard, and so that others will feel the same level of courage to say, let me talk about my personal purpose.
And the last thing I'll say on that one is that, I think often the reason to not do this is it's understood to be in competition with the primary objective that the leaderships have been trained at business school and law school to think is their kind of fiduciary duty, which is to generate these returns to shareholders. If we can continue to prove to them that there is no conflict between the two, hopefully, and they can see that this is the future of business. It's not about a sideshow to the main event of making money. It is the future of your business. Then hopefully that kind of snowball effect starts, and we start to see many, many more leaders willing to engage and lead.
Well, thank you so much. And
I
Sheila,
see a question from Ashley C. Hall.
Yep.
Hi, good morning. Ashley C. Hall with Walmart. Great presentations. Jonathan, I love the challenge that you have for this group, and there's no time like the present, right? Because we're all here together. We don't get together that often. So my question to all of you up there is, by the end of this summit, at the end of each session, what are the questions we should be asking, and what are the actions that we want to take forward? And how do we take that challenge that you all have and actually turn it into action in some sense by the end of this summit?
That's great. Thank you.
Super.
I'm not going to try to answer it, but I would also throw one more thing in there. Who's not here, present in either TSC or at the summit, that we need to be thinking about bringing into the community to make our collective agenda bigger and more powerful and more impactful? And I think you all know what I'm saying, but I think there are folks that could join this conversation and dialogue and work that would raise the bar much, much higher, much, much faster. So what do we need to do to make sure that they join us? Would be a question. It could be an initiative, it could be a company, it could be a sector, but I'm beginning to really see that the TSC as a collaboration hub, the beauty for me at Unilever is there's not that many people in sustainability. I need to take shortcuts when I can. I can go to TSC who has these relationships with other initiatives and not have to run around to 17 different initiatives trying to figure things out. I want to be able to have a one-stop shop at TSC. They're my issue management group, they're my collaboration group, they're my connection to other initiatives. So what are the other initiatives that should also be kind of part of this story, I think would be another thing we'd think about.
I would just say that, at Futerra we work with a theory of change, and it's about that big vision, the symbols that embody it, the roadmap that gets you there, and then the storytelling that brings your stakeholders along with you. So the work that is happening here is so complex that many of the people we need to bring along might not really be able to wrap their heads around it. To come back to Jonathan said, so how do we make sure that at all times we have a powerful vision that gets those who don't understand the complexity of this work as excited about it as we all are? How are we communicating that in a way that is so compelling that people are excited and want to help us do this? So as we work on the technical details and the depth and rigor that the brains in this room can bring, let's also remember that every single one of us is a mouthpiece and an advocate for this work. And the more that we can engage those beyond the choir in what we're doing and bring them along, hopefully the broader the net spreads, the bigger the excitement gets. Every single one of you is a visionary, and I want everyone to understand the power of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I'll just add a few thoughts. I know we're probably running over time, but I think the idea of this summit and a lot of the sessions was very much to go beyond the technical and to move to this next phase of the consortium. And we actually designed it with the hopes that out of our sessions, and particularly tomorrow with our working sessions, that we start to drive that kind of collective action that Jonathan's speaking about. And that's really what the report also is about. It's about going that next step. We've spent all this time doing the technical. Now it's the time, actually the fun time, right, to take that and to drive action. And I think that the call to action around going from the blind spots, the hot spots, the action and growth is the exciting part, because the work that we did to develop the hot spots was a huge amount of work, right? And we have a huge amount forward, but it's actually really exciting because we get to start to see the change happening. So I think that's really what the theme of this summit about. It's about going that next step and beginning to see where we're going to go. And we're hoping that coming out of this, we're going to have a long list of things that we can start to generate the activity within the consortium we can start to work together on. So very excited. And I'll hand it back to Sarah.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, certainly thinking about who do we need at the table, who's missing to make this big vision work, and then how to articulate that to inspire them to get involved, and then how do we work together and what do we work together on as we are looking at where to drive impact, how can we drive impact, I think really fits with the overall theme of the consortium summit this week. And so thank you, and I would ask that we give our panelists a round of applause.